Hello, my dear students. Welcome to the class of 12th English Medium. The subject is Statistics, Part 1, Chapter 1, Index Numbers, brought to you by Vitan Sir. In my previous tutorial, we discussed about the solution of exercise 1.3. What we have done till now is calculate index number, convert its base from fixed base to chain or chain to fixed. Then also we calculated the last pair, Passe, Fisher and weighted average index numbers. Now what we are going to study in this tutorial is a new, that's cost of living index number. We are moving towards a somewhat practical and a kind of an index number which is used worldwide by various governments to calculate the standard of living of people. So it's an index number which connects with us directly. It is something which is used in our lives, in day-to-day lives, by government and various organizations for the purpose of deciding our incomes, our various government policies, the taxation policy, the various government schemes for weaker section and many other things. So it's quite useful. The cost of living index number is calculated to study and measure the changes in the cost of living, that is living standards of people from different sections of the society. The definition could be the number showing the percentage of relative changes in the cost of living of the people of a certain section of the society in the current period as compared to the base period. This number is called the cost of living index number. So my dear students, this is the definition of cost of living index number. It shows the percentage change in the cost of living of people. That means what is the expenditure done by people in the current year compared to the expenditure done by people in the previous year, and the percentage change in that expenditure is called the cost of living index number. Now, how this cost of living index number is constructed? So the construction of CLI, number one, we need to know the purpose. We should ascertain the class of people living in society for whom the cost of living index number is calculated. The need for weaker and rich class are usually different. Thus, it is necessary to clarify the purpose. So, as we know that what a weaker section needs, accordingly what rich people need in their lives is quite different. So first we should determine for which section of people we are calculating this cost of living index number, and accordingly we should decide our measures. Family budget inquiry. A random sample of families is selected from that class of people for whom the cost of living index is to be prepared. The information is obtained about the list of items consumed by them, their expenses, retail prices, etc. Usually such data is divided into 5 sections, that is food, clothing, house rent, for fuel and electricity expenses. Importance of each group is also obtained. We have to take a random sample of family budget, families, various families from the class of people for whom we are creating index number. We gather information from them about the items consumed by them, their daily or monthly expenses, the prices of items consumed by them. And this data is divided into 5 sections, that is the items of food, items of clothing, house rent, fuel and electricity. So sometimes miscellaneous is also taken as a section. So all of this data is obtained, and the importance of each group for the families is also obtained to calculate the index number. The availability of price of items. Now the retail prices of items are collected when we are calculating cost of living index number from the areas of the residence of the people from the class of families for whom the index number is to be calculated. So for whom we are calculating index number, those families, their area and the retail prices of the items consumed by those families in their area is collected. as far as possible, these prices must be obtained from the standard or government approved shops, so we can get a standardized prices rather than inflated or deflated prices. The average is considered when prices are obtained from many shops at different times. Now, if we are collecting prices of same item from 5 or 10 shops, or at a different times of days or months or different months of the year, we can take an average of these prices to use them. Fourth is a base year. A normal year is selected as a base year. That's very simple. Average. A proper average should be selected for different items. Now, theoretically, we know that the geometric mean is the best average, or it's an ideal option for percentage values, but it is difficult to compute, and hence weighted mean is commonly used for that purpose. Number 6, weight. The importance of different items selected in the construction of index number is not same, and therefore a number associated to its items with proportion their importance is called weight. So we assign a number depending on the importance of each item, and these numbers are called weights. And there are two types of weights used in the construction of index number. First one is the implicit weight. This is indirect method of assigning weights, where the weights are determined based on the number of varieties of different items selected in construction of index number. Now, this similarly means that if how many types of items have I selected for a certain index number, but this kind of weight is an indirect method and it is not used practically, because the quantifying this, the numerical value of this weight is very difficult to identify. So usually in our calculations we don't use this first type of weight, that is implicit weight. The weight which we use regularly is the explicit weight. This is a direct method of assigning weight, where weights of items are expressed numerically directly in the proportion to their importance. That means I assign a number based on the importance of such items relative to the importance of other items, so that I can, if I am assigning a bigger number, it means that item has more importance. If I am assigning a lesser number, that item has a less importance. So this is an explicit weighting method, and this method is used practically in the calculation of cost of living index number. So there are two methods for assigning explicit weight. Okay, and these are the two methods of also calculating cost of living index number. So there are two methods of assigning explicit weight. The first method is method of total expenditure, and second method is method of family budget. So these two are the methods of assigning explicit weight, as well as these two are the methods of calculating cost of living index number according to our syllabus. So we are going to follow these two methods. Let's understand what are the formulas for calculating cost of living index using these two methods. The first method is method of total expenditure. The percentage ratio of total expenditure of current year with the total expenditure of the base year is called the method of total index number by the total expenditure method. Now that means that we calculate a total expenditure of the base year, compare it with the total expenditure of the current year, and the percentage ratio of these two comparisons is the method of total expenditure. So if we are using the quantity of the base year in the calculation, okay, we know that the prices of current and base year are always there, but which quantity should we take? We are familiar with the usage of quantities from the last year and past year, that last year uses the base year quantity and past year uses the current year quantity. Similarly, if in the method of total expenditure we are using the base year quantity, that is Q0, then summation P1 Q0 will be total expenditure of current year, because it uses the current year prices and base year quantity, and total expenditure of base year will be summation P0 Q0, because it uses the base year price and base year quantity. So current year price is the total expenditure of current year, and base year price shows the total expenditure of base year, and in both of these we multiply the Q0. So P1 Q0 is the current year total expenditure, P0 Q0 is the base year total expenditure. So the percentage ratio here is index number of I summation P1 Q0 upon summation P0 Q0 into 100. Simple, this is the index number by last year's. So the total expenditure method, if we are using the quantity of base year, we have to use the index number by last year's formula. Although we are not going to write last year's index number, this is just the formula used by last year. What we are calculating is cost of living index number under the total expenditure method. So even if this is the last year's formula, we will not give the title as last year's index number. We will give the title as cost of living index number by total expenditure method. But if we are using the base year quantity, the formula will be last year's. Similarly, if we are using the quantity of current year, I think you guys can guess it correctly. We are going to use P1Q1, that is the total expenditure of current year, and P0Q1, that is the total expenditure of base year. We have used the current year quantity, that is Q1. So index number will be naturally summation P1Q1 upon summation P0Q1 into 100. Naturally, this is the purchase index number. So the total expenditure method basically uses the last year's and purchase index number, but either of these, because whatever is the data given, accordingly we have to decide whether to use the Q0 or Q1. They will give us the data, and from that data we will be deciding if the base year quantity is available, we will use the first formula, and if the current year quantity is available, we will use the latter formula. Method of family budget. Okay, now this is a different method. The percentage price relative, that is I, is taken for each item for the current year compared to the base year. Then the expenditure for every item in the base year is found and is taken as weight W for each index number. The formula for that index number is, now looking at this I and W, I think you guys can guess what could be the formula. Yes, it's the weighted average index number formula, that is summation IW upon summation W. So total expenditure method uses last year's or purchase index numbers, whereas the family budget method uses the weighted average index number method. So we have to calculate the summation IW upon summation W. That would be the index number for family budget. So the title will be cost of living index number by the family budget method using IW upon W. Remember that the values, the answers calculated by last year's method, I mean total expenditure method using the base year quantity, and the family budget method will be same. So whether you use the total expenditure method or you use the family budget method, you will get the same answer. Okay, so which method to be used depends on the question, depends on the data. If in the data W is directly given, naturally we are going to use the IW method. If in the question it is written specifically use the family budget method, we have to use the family budget method. If in the question the current year base year prices are given and the quantity of base year or current year is given and nothing mentioned, then we will use the total expenditure method. And if it is specifically mentioned to use the total expenditure method, we will use that. But let me clarify one more thing. In certain cases, weight is the expenditure of base year. So W is taken as P0 Q0. Why we have to do that? That sometimes they give us the base year current year prices and the base year quantity. That means W is not there. And they ask us to use the family budget method in which we require I and W. So I is easy to be calculated, that is P1 upon Q0 into 100. But W we have to calculate as P0 into Q0. So in these cases, we can take family budget index number as, we know this formula. In here, I is P1 upon P0 into 100 and W is P0 Q0. So again in the division also we will write P0 Q0. Now as you can see here, P1 upon P0 into 100 into P0 Q0, in which we can just cancel out this P0 from both sides. Okay, are you getting my point here? We can just cancel out this P0. So the remaining value in the numerator is P1 into Q0 and into 100 divided by P0 Q0. So as you can see here, this family budget method follows the total expenditure method of last year's index number. Okay, so that means that both of the values will be same. So in some cases where W is not given and still we have to use the family budget method, just take W as P0 Q0. So it's that simple. These are the two main formulas which we will be discussing in my next tutorial in this solution for exercise 1.4. But some theory is still left. Uses of cost of living index number. Now this is important because cost of living index number is a quite an important index number and it has many uses. The changes in the purchasing power of money can be calculated and real income can be known with the help of cost of living index number. So the purchasing power of money, that is how much amount of commodity can your money purchase, that's called the purchasing power of money. It keeps on changing. Just a simple example that before 10 years I could buy 2 boxes of matches with a 1 rupee. Today I can only buy one box of match is of using 1 rupee. So that means the purchasing power of money has reduced. So what is the actual purchasing power of money in current year compared to base year can be calculated using index number, this cost of living index. And similarly the real wage, if you are earning 10,000, okay, compared to the base year you were only earning 7,000 and in current year you are earning 10,000, but the index number has also changed, your expenses has also changed. So comparing your income with your expenses, are you earning properly? Are you earning more than what you used to earn before with the increase in your expenditure? So that comparison can be done using the cost of living index number. So the formula for that is purchasing power of money 1 upon cost of living index number into 100. That is your purchasing power of money. While the real wage or real income, that is the comparison of incomes, is wage or income divided by cost of living index number into 100. These two are important formulas, keep them in mind. It shows the real economic condition of different classes of people, which helps in determining the wages, salary, DNS allowance, bonus, etc. paid to them. So the people or the section of people or the class of people living under certain conditions, we can know the standard of living using the cost of living index number, and we can determine that how much wages they require, how much salary they require, whether we should give them certain proportion of DNS allowance or not. If we are giving them DNS allowance, how much percentage of DNS allowance should be given? For those who don't know what is DNS allowance is the extra amount paid above the regular salary based on the percentage of inflation in the market. So if the inflation is 10%, for example, then 10% of salary is paid extra considering the rate of inflation. So all of that is calculated using the cost of living index number. This measures the effect of retail prices on the cost of living, which helps government in constructing policies for controlling prices. So if the retail prices are too high, which is affecting the cost of living of people, then government will know that whether they need to control these prices or not, or whether they should impose some restrictions on such prices or not. It can help government in taking decisions. It shows government an indicator for framing tax policies, policies regarding issues like price regulation and fair regulation, etc. So government can get an idea of how to frame such policies using the cost of living index number. The government agencies and public institutions can use it means cost of living index number, as a base to determine the necessity for special facilities to elevate the standard of living of certain class of people. It means that if a certain class of people is facing a lot of problems because their cost of living is quite high, or maybe their incomes are very low compared to their cost of living, then government or certain non-governmental organization, NGOs, will know what steps to take to help them raise their standard of living or help them in their financial needs using certain policies or schemes or certain actions, we can say. So they know they need certain criteria for that purpose, and that criteria is the cost of living index number. What are the limitations of cost of living index number? No index number is a foolproof index number. Nothing in this world is without limitations. So even if this cost of living index number has a lot of uses, still it has some limitations. It is not possible to construct a single index number for all sections of society. For each and every section of a society, you need a different kind of index number considering different items, and then it creates a problem because you need different methods of tackling the issues of different section of people. It's not easy, it's very difficult. Cost of living index number obtained for certain class of people of certain region can't be used for same class of people of other regions. If the cost of living index number calculated for a certain class of people of Rajasthan cannot be used for the same class of people of Gujarat, the conditions, the government, the policies, the environment, the society, everything is different. You can't compare them. You can't say that the same index number used in Rajasthan can be used in Gujarat. So we can't use the same index number for a different class of people, and we can't use the same index number for the same class of people of different regions. Just look at the complexity it creates. CLI just shows an average percentage in the cost of living of a whole class of people. That means it is not possible to calculate this change for an individual. It is just an average of the whole class. We can't say for sure that each and every person belonging to the same class has the same situation. We can't say that. It is necessary to calculate separate index numbers for separate classes of people for separate regions. So each region and each class of people needs a different index number. So the number of regions varies, the number of classes varies, and that many number of index number we will need to calculate. The expenditure of a family depends on its size, lifestyle, likings, and habits. There is no uniformity of expenditure of all the families of the same class. So because even if we are calculating index number for the same class of people, every family differs. Their size differs. Someone is living alone, some are in a couple, some has only a child, some has their parents to take care of. The number of people in a family can vary. Their lifestyle, some believe in a simple living and high thinking, some believe in high living and high thinking. Their lifestyles, their likings, their habits, their food, their clothing, their living quarters, everything differs, and we have to find the index number combining all of them. So naturally there will be some defects in it. It is calculated with an assumption. Now this is a very grave limitation. It is calculated with an assumption that lifestyle of families don't change in the current year compared to the base year, and usually this assumption is wrong. They are trying to say that comparing the year 2018 and 2020, we are assuming that the people who lived in 2018 are living in the same manner in 2020, which is a totally baseless assumption. Usually their lifestyle changes every year with the change in income, or with the change in the number of people in the family, or with the change in fashion, or change in society or environment. Their lifestyle keeps on changing, and that means to keep a record of their changing lifestyle, it becomes necessary to conduct an inquiry at regular intervals, and we have to keep on changing the importance given to each item of an index number. So it has many uses, this cost of living index number, but similarly it has too much complexities. It is not that easy to calculate. It is not that easy to determine the importance given by each family to its items consumed. It is not easy to combine all the families of a class or combine all the classes into a single index number. So the number of index numbers calculated may range from thousands. So it's not easy. My dear students, this is the cost of living index number, the construction, the types of weights, the methods of calculating, the uses and the limitation. Next time we will discuss the exercise 1.4, and solve the questions given in them using these two methods which we have just studied. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial. Please prepare a proper notes, and in case of any doubts, contact me personally. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Welcome students to Vitan Sir's Unacount Academy. That's better way to success for you. I am Vitan Vora and I teach accountancy, statistics and social science. You can contact me on my cell number 919426310184. Please give a sub to my channel and also check out my other video playlist which you can see on the screen. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video.